Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the European Championships. We're going to take a look ahead at the first ever European Championships in Spain. The racing will take place in Pontevedra, Galicia, and with me here to do that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
As always, my pleasure. It's much appreciated that you are here. We are recording this on Tuesday night. Podcast should be out by Wednesday morning. Just a timestamp reference in case anything changes. The racing will take place in Pontevedra, that is in Galicia region. As I just said, the racing will take place on a park cross course. It's quite fast. It has a couple of technical sections. There's two 40-centimeter wooden planks. There is a newly constructed sand pit. And despite the race taking place on the banks of the Lérès River, it is mostly flat. At the end of the lap there are a couple of banked sections. I know last year they put a ton of corners there in the race. The map doesn't indicate it, but I think that will be a bit more technical. The lines are just too thick to properly draw that. Issam, very fast weather conditions look to confirm those conditions. It's going to be sunny all week, 23 degrees Celsius on the day of racing. All races stacked into Sunday. And before we can take a look ahead at the racing, I would like to talk to you about that briefly. All races have been put on the Sunday to accommodate for the Koppenberg Cross taking place on Friday. What do you think about this? This week Bart Wellens gave an interview, or actually he wrote his column in Het Nieuwsblad, the second biggest newspaper of Belgium, saying that it was a scandal that the UCI allowed this. They should have forced the Koppenberg to take a different date. Too many riders are putting their staff in an impossible position because they need to do a 1,000-kilometer transfer from the Koppenberg to Pontevedra. What do you think about that?
I don't think the UCI should have forced anything. I think that, obviously, I think that for the Koppenberg, it's definitely not a great date to be at, but it was their own choice in a way, and they felt that traditions are above all. They took that date, and well, then it's up for the riders that think that the XCO trophy is more important than the preparation for a European Championship. I think that the riders are perfectly capable of, weighing in the pros and cons in a way with racing at the Koppenberg. And, life is all about making choices. So I think that the decisions have to be made and hard ones have to be made. And if that means that you still eye to have a good position in the XO trophy, you have to take in the 5 minutes of penalty in a way and go on with the classification and hope that you can gain some time back in the next couple of races. But the one thing that you maybe could do is that you try to force organizers to not be able to organize a race around the weekend and also the Friday. I don't know what you're going to gain with that, to be honest. It's a tricky situation for the Koppenberg, and on the one hand you got the traditions, but on the other hand I think that convenience should maybe be a little bit more important in this case.
I find it very weird that the Koppenberg Cross is having meetings with the European Championships and altering the schedule of the European Championships. Having all races take place on Sunday is very, very tough. Last year it worked out, but very tough. And last year it was only because the first day of racing was cancelled due to a storm. So I think that the European Championships should have more priority than the Koppenberg. And if the European Championship says we're racing on Saturday and Sunday, then the Koppenberg Cross can decide to organize on Friday, accepting a horrendous woman elite field, or they make the decision to not organize on November 1st and instead organize on Wednesday. It's vacation in Belgium. There would still be plenty of people showing up, or they for 1 year just take a completely different date. Instead of the X2O trophy moving Lokeren to a Saturday, they can put the Koppenberg Cross on that date and put Lokeren somewhere else. There should have been better solutions. I think this benefits nobody. It doesn't benefit the European Championships having all races on one day. It doesn't benefit the riders who are doing both, and it certainly doesn't benefit the staff, which needs to do a very long transfer in a very limited amount of time. Then the racing. Let's leave the Koppenberg for what it is. The start list isn't out. We know a couple of riders will be starting there. I think for the Men Elite, most favorites will be starting there. Who is your top favorite here, Issam, or are there multiple?
In the men's category, I would say there are multiple that could win. The first one that pops to mind is definitely Nice, the way he won in Overijse. That performance was a remarkable one, was a good performance. He was able to rise from the poor performances that he had before. So he looks like he has some momentum with him, and that could play a role going into the championship. But obviously, Iserbyt has had a very good weekend as well. We have seen a good start of the season for Van de Putte. There are multiple guys that really could go and battle it out for the win. And the interesting thing about the men's category is that we have seen that it is a bit difficult to get a gap, especially on the somewhat faster courses, and that is exactly what we are going to get presented most likely in this European Championship. So it looks to be that it's going to be a close one. I don't think we're going to have a winner that will surprise all of us, but it's going to be fast, and the ones that race the smartest and has the best legs is probably going to win. And it could be that if you are a bit smarter in the race, you might end up winning from the one that has the better legs. So it's going to be an interesting race for sure at the men's side, and it's going to be close. And I think if you make a mistake or two, that could cost you badly in this race.
Two riders have a slight advantage for me. Those are Thibaut Nys and Eli Iserbyt. Their performances last weekend were very good. We had Thibaut Nys taking the win in Overijse, but Iserbyt physically was definitely on par. I wonder how they will do on the Koppenberg, and for Nys, I'm a bit more cautious. It's a bit difficult to, in full confidence, say he's going to be good because he had that rough season start and he surprised himself by winning in Overijse. Still, I think they are the strongest riders there at the moment, with Van der Haar closely behind. With Van der Haar, I mentioned a Dutch rider. You make very valid points, Issam. The racing has been close this season. Pontevedra, fast course, difficult to create a gap. As always with these championships, there's talk, Belgian block, will the team tactics be applied? How will they avoid Van der Haar and Ronhaar from taking the win, or anybody else for that matter? You know my stance on the Belgian block. I think it doesn't exist as long as there's not one clear leader like Wout van Aert. I just can't see Laurens Sweeck do anything for Iserbyt and Van Toerenhout. Neither can I see Nys really drop a gap for Iserbyt. I'm curious to hear your thoughts there. Last year, of course, Iserbyt helped Van Toerenhout become European champion. How do you see the dynamics play out here?
That is definitely going to be interesting. Hopefully, there are not going to be things happening that we will hear about for 2 or 3 weeks after the race. I think, obviously, as you said, Iserbyt and Van Toerenhout, they know each other very well. They have helped each other in a variety of races and even in championships if it was possible. So they will probably do the same again. Question will be, is Nys going to be able to close an eye if Van der Haar attacks and the other way around? It's going to be difficult. And as you said, someone like Sweeck is probably not going to close gaps for neither if Van der Haar goes. And, he will sit back and try to... sit in the wheels and hope that someone else will close that gap. So there might be some gambling going on in the race, and everybody thinks that he is the smartest, and that could be costly in a way, because I think that if you give someone on this course 10-15 seconds, I think it's going to be difficult to close a gap, and you might end up in a situation like we have seen in Ruddervoorde, where you had some guys at the front, they look at each other, one guy thinks it's a good moment to attack, and they somewhat see him again, but they see him with the hands in the air winning the race. So it's going to be a difficult dynamic. I don't think that we are going to see very close camaraderie between the national team members despite the team differences. But I don't think it will be that obvious. I don't think that we will have big clashes after this as well, with Paul Sauze versus Baloise Trek Lions. Maybe there will be some irritation, but I don't think it will be. At least I hope for them it will not. It won't blow up that much, and it won't be a big of a deal during the race.
I envision the race unfolding as follows. For the first 15-20 minutes, we have a very big leading group. All Belgians are there, 8 Belgians, a couple of Dutch riders, Oorts, big group. After 20 minutes, you see a big sustained push by Van Toerenhout, and that really creates a first split, separation, and then the tactical games get played, and we will be in a situation where nobody wants to go to the line with Thibaut Nys. Maybe Niels van der Putten wants to. Van der Putten will be happy with this course, he's been strong, but very few people will be confident sprinting against Nys. So you'll see the attacks, and then it's really just a matter of who's the best and who's the strongest. For me, Nys is the slight favorite, especially on this course. I think he should be able to take the win. Iserbeet, I struggle to see where he is going to make a difference. The sand pit, well, he's not a horrible sand rider, but how will he make a difference there? And definitely not going to make the differences on the planks against Van der Putten. And in the technical sections, he's not going to make a difference over Nys. So the Paulshausen boys will definitely be playing some team tactics, because this is not a good course for Van Toerenhout. It's way too fast, it's way too hot, it's way too dry. It's a good course for Zweek, but his form is a question mark. Let's see how he does. It's a course for Van der Putten. He can use the planks to his advantage, but can he also use it to his advantage when his main rival is Thibaut Nys? I don't know. Toon Aerts, not a good course for him. Also, his form is a question mark. Viseur has been good on every course this year. He will feature. He will need tactics to win. Then the Dutch riders. They will certainly need tactics, because they cannot count on the Belgian block dysfunctioning or malfunctioning. Van der Haar and Ronhaar will need each other. It helps that they are trade teammates. It helps that Nys is also a trade teammate of them. But still, they will both want to win. It's not necessarily a great course for Ronhaar, but it's a good course for Van der Haar. How do you think the Dutch riders will do in the race?
We will normally see a Van der Haar that will wait it out a little bit and see what happens. I think that Ronhaar for sure will be someone that, if he has good legs, will try to be at the front and maybe even try once or twice to get a gap if he has the legs to do so. So he will be someone that will close the gaps maybe a little bit more and try to keep it together if the Belgians are not doing it, or play some tactics. Then I think he's going to be the chosen one in that regard. Van der Haar is going to play tactically a little bit smarter and is going to weigh things out and see how it plays out between the Belgian riders themselves. And I think that for Van der Haar it could be a very good race, because he can wait it out a little bit. Everybody wants to win the jersey. I don't think that they really see a need to race as a team against Van der Haar. So I think that will be interesting for the Dutch riders, how they will deal with the big Belgian block, as they say sometimes, huh?
It's always a question of how that goes, because we've seen Van der Haar destroy the Belgian block when it malfunctioned on the Vanberg. We've also seen the Belgian block kind of function like last year, and sometimes like in Namur, it just comes down to who's the strongest on the day. But I think the racing here will be somewhat similar perhaps to what we had at the Rosmalen venue. It's a venue that's been used a lot for the European Championships. Although Rosmalen was a bit more selective. It had the sand, it had that technical section in the woods. So actually ditch that. I don't think it will be that similar to Rosmalen. I already kind of went over what I had to say in terms of the favorites. I think you've also done that. If we look at the other riders from outside the Netherlands and Belgium, I just don't think there's anybody who can realistically compete. Kuhn is sitting this one out, hoping to be good when the World Cup starts. Felipe Oorts is then obviously the name you come to. He's very motivated. Realistically, a podium is not within reach for Oorts. If he gets a top 5 or even a top 10, he should be very happy. The field is, well, I mean, you know how it is with the full-time cross riders. It's packed. It's tough at the top. And then Mason hasn't been good enough this year, and Bertolini, he's back to a fuller program, but I don't really see it. And for Boros, the course is too fast. Unless you have anything else to add, Issam, please tell me so, and else give us your prediction.
I think I go straight to the predictions, to be honest. I will say that I probably expect Niels van der Putten to win in the end. I think that he could do it, become European champion. Then second place for Van der Haar, third Thibaut Nys.
I think we will get to see Thibaut Nys take the European title ahead of Niels van der Putten and Lars van der Haar, and that will be decided in a long last lap sprint. On to the women's race then, Issam. We already discussed it pre-race. For us, there are 3 favorites here. Serena del Carmen Alvarado, Lucinda Brandt, and Fem van Empel. I think that Alvarado has a slight edge on this course. Unlike Brandt and Van Empel, she's not doing the Koppenberg. The course is relatively fast. It's a tad technical. Van Empel, yes, she's improving. If it's a sprint, she'll probably win. Although Brandt is also a very good sprinter. I just think that with the Van Empel I've seen now, it's not smooth enough, not consistent enough, too many mistakes. I would give Alvarado the benefit of the doubt over Brandt even after this weekend, simply because Alvarado isn't doing the Koppenberg cross.
Yeah, but the Koppenberg, it is obviously going to be that is something that could potentially play a role. Although we are, quite early season and the riders are quite fresh. They had some rest already. They are not really having those pains that you will feel when you're in, the end of January or after the Worlds even. It's difficult to say how much that will play a role. We will probably kind of know, after Sunday or at Sunday night, we will really know how much of a role it played and probably discuss it as well. I think the one thing that really worries me in a way is the sort of decline in form from Alvarado's side, especially in Overijse. It wasn't a convincing performance. We shouldn't really go off on one bad race in a way, but I really liked how Brandt was racing. I think that she was, she so far had just a straight line going forward in terms of form, and it looks really good. And I think that someone like Brandt will probably not have that much difficulties doing the Koppenberg and then also racing the Europeans. And if they are sensible, they do not make a hard race of the Koppenberg, which is difficult because it is a hard course. Imagine not making a hard race out of the Koppenberg, but you could try at least a little bit and how bad it will be in the end. But I think that Brandt is someone that would be able to manage both the Koppenberg and the European Championships. I'm not sure about Van Empel. Probably would be able to do so as well. And then it's going to be interesting to see how the race will play out. I think in terms of form, I think that I would give Brandt at the moment the edge. She looks very good. The power is there. She can utilize the powers, especially the first part of the course. Some straights where she can really put in the pace. Van Empel, it's difficult to say, but she definitely has some power as well. If she strategically takes this race a little better and races as she wants to win, then I think that it's going to be a close race between those two. And if you take Van Empel with you in the last lap, despite the fact that she doesn't always uses her cards in her advantage in a sprint, I think that she will probably have the upper hand. So that will be interesting. And for Alvarado, it's going to be a question if she can bounce back a little bit from that bad performance in Overijse.
I don't know, is Van Empel really going to have the upper hand in the sprint? Because Brandt is also very, very, very rapid. I'm just going to check right now, and that final straight is also quite long, which plays into the advantage of Brandt, who prefers a long sprint. She's very powerful, as you said. I think we could see a very close sprint between Brandt and Van Empel. But ultimately, I think the Koppenberg will weigh through, because it is not an easy race. It's the hardest course on the calendar for a reason. It's the most physically demanding course there is. And you can try and race it easy, but it's always going to take a toll on you. Yes, Alvarado didn't look great. Yes, Brandt did look great in Overijse. But I'm thinking Alvarado wasn't at her best because she's working towards finalizing her form here. And I think it will work out for her. And that at some point she's going to take advantage of some problems for the other riders on technical sections in the sandpit or whatever. So that's definitely my take. I think that we'll see Alvarado take the win, but we'll see, Issam. It should be an interesting race, hopefully a thrilling final lap with 3 riders going into that together. Maybe even more. What do you think? Sara Casasola, do you think she can make a play?
First couple of laps, I definitely think that she will be able to hang on at that point if there isn't a solo attack and the race is wide open. I think that she will be able to, at least till half race, play a role. Question is, will she be able to play a role after that? I don't think so, to be honest. I think that most likely the highest achievable position for her is going to be third place. be on the podium. I think that if one of the three that we have mentioned, with the Brandt, Van Empel, Alvarado, if one of them has a bad day, which could very well be possible, has a mechanical, I think she could be up there and make use of that and get a podium. I think that if they do what they are, what we are expecting from them to do, fight for the podium, I think that for Casasola, 4th place is most likely the highest achievable, with a role in the first half of the race, which is definitely not bad. But yeah, if you're asking me if she's going to be able to, play a role for the podium, I don't see that happen.
I would agree with you there. I'm definitely inclined to agree, yeah, because we've seen it consistently. She's good, but this course is not like Overijs. It's too easy for her to really make a point of difference from her strength, and we've seen it quite a lot that in the final lap or 2 laps, she's deflated and fades a bit. I would expect the same here. She'll probably be in the mix for a couple of laps, as you said, and I would also like to tip Helene Clauzel and Inger van der Heijden, because they love a fast course like this. For Donschot, maybe not as much, but you never know. She's shown decent form in Heerde. That one sand section, depending on how hard it is, can significantly help her gain a couple of seconds throughout the lap, but I would be surprised if the podium is anything else than Alvarado, Van Empel, Brandt. That is my prediction.
In that order.
Yes, in that order.
All right. I'm going with Brandt. I think that Brandt can pull it off. I would say Brandt, Van Empel, Alvarado. That will be my top 3.
Well, we will see. Time will tell if we are right. Somebody who could have been in the discussion for top 5 placing here at the elite race is Marie Schreiber, the champion of Luxembourg. She's racing the women's U23 race. Honestly, I can kind of understand the decision. She's not won any titles there yet. This is her final year, so she'll be hoping to still win some of those titles. And without Zoe Backstedt here, she definitely has a good chance. Heck, even with Backstedt, I would have given her a good chance, because her transition from road to cyclocross has been very, very great. She's won both races in Nome for the Coupe de France. She was second in Woerden, and this weekend she annihilated the competition, or the opposition, I must say, in Luxembourg. Clear favorite here for the under-23 title, isn't she?
Absolutely. I think that the only one that can really pose a threat is bad luck, mechanicals, mistakes, illness. Did I miss something? I don't know. Disqualification of some sort, losing your mind. You name it. Being too late for the start. I think those are kind of things that could ruin a chance of winning the Europeans at the under-23. I think that overall, she is the clear favorite. The question will be, when is she going to make her move? Knowing Schreiber, probably the first lap.
Well, yeah, because she's never going to be late for the start. A false start is a bigger danger for her. Maybe she does a Sergio Perez and lines up a meter in front of the start line and thinks it's all good, and then she tells the commissar, no, start was good. But no, I agree with you. There's only these factors that should normally be able to stop Schreiber. Yes, in the past she's had a couple of iffy days at championships, but she's also had fine days, and most of those iffy days were related to illness. So if she's not ill, I think she should have the upper hand. The main rivals here, Kristina Zemanova, perfect course for her, but she has those long COVID effects, and it's not looked great in the Czech Republic. So either we need to draw the conclusion that the level of the field in the Czech Republic is insanely high, or that Zemanova is not at her best, and I'm inclined to think the latter. She's not at her best, and that means that I think she also won't finish second. I think that place will go to Leonie Bentveld. It's not a good course for Bentveld. Bentveld has not been superb this season so far, but Bentveld is a rider that does better when we get to the mud, and that's later, but that's not here in Pontevedra, so yeah, I don't really see her challenge Schreiber, but I think she should be a solid second.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that Bentveld has shown a little more promise than Zemanova this start of the season. So I incline to agree with that. That Bentveld definitely is, for me, the big favorite as runner-up. And yeah, then it's going to be a question if Zemanova has enough to be third, which I probably think she will have. but it's gonna be close with some of the riders behind her if she's going to be able to hold them off.
I would say so. Her results in the big Belgian races have been good. If you're looking at the other riders, we already mentioned Zemanova. Then we have a couple of first-year U23s. Victoria Gladonova, for instance. Gladonova this weekend was quite far behind Zemanova, still over half a minute. Gladonova was between juniors, behind Judith Kraal. So I do think that, considering what I just told, we should consider those three the riders for the podium. I would be more likely to say that Géry could make a play. She won in Metmanstetten this weekend. She has been decent. But then again, if we look at the Coupe de France races, they were in Nome. And again, we have a very small sample pool to go by because the European Championships are early and there's been few races. But in Nome, when Géry finished third, she was a minute and a half behind Schreiber. And on the second day, she finished fifth. And she was 3 minutes behind Schreiber. And she was also 3 minutes behind Clausel. So I struggle to see them make a play. Maybe Morse, it's a fast course, it could suit her. Do you think any of these riders can challenge for a podium, or?
I think that will very much depend on the form of Zemanova, to be honest. I think that I stay with that. I think that Géry definitely could maybe play a role. I think that Morse, not so much, I would say, especially if you look at Overijse, a very good race. But it's hard to place in a way. And as you said, a lot of these riders had their races in their area, or at least close to their area. As you said, Géry was in the Coupe de France, Zemanova mostly raced in the Czech Republic. That is obviously going to make it a little difficult to know where everyone is. I think that this championship will definitely tell us a lot more in terms of where everyone stands at that point. And I think from there on, there will be more and more races coming that will just highlight the differences between the riders a little bit more and give us more of an idea where everybody stands. But in a way, we are going into this championship, especially in the junior and under 23 categories, in some regard, especially the midfield, we're going into it somewhat blindly.
Yeah, and it frustrates me, it infuriates me. I mean, I like it when there's the World Cup or two before, because, man, it just makes it so much easier. I can, before those World Cups, kind of have an idea based on the results, but now it's really just going through these results and trying to unskew it. And especially if you have 4 races to go by, that's so tough because maybe somebody had a puncture, maybe they had a bad day, maybe there was a crash. And I watched some of those Coupe de France races, so I know something about Sparvel, which we'll come to talk about in a bit, but not all races are broadcast, so it's super tough. Still, I'll stick with my prediction, Schreiber, Bentveld, Zemanova. What do you think? You are allowed to go with the same one.
Just in case I go with something completely crazy, right?
No, feel free to make a bold prediction if you want, but...
No, I think that I cannot... Especially the first one, I think that I'm quite confident in Schreiber winning it. I would say Bentveld second. Let's go with Géry in third. I believe that Zemanova will do it, but let's just mix it up a little bit, I guess.
Okay, then we go to the U23 men's race. This is certainly a bit easier to predict. Issam, it should be a battle between Jente Michels and David Haverdings, right?
Should be, and I think that if I focus it now only on Haverdings, I think that from Haverdings we have seen a great improvement over, to be honest, from last season already and into this season. It looked very good. And Michels has shown himself as well a little more than he did last year at the front. I think that it looks also quite promising. And, those two have had a very good season start. And, they look to be the guys that will probably make it out in the under 23 category. But again, there is one thing, though, that we have to keep in mind. An under 23 race is always a little different. It's always a little bit more tactical, a bit weirder. Things happen that you somewhat do not expect. The favorites are still the favorites, but it's just sometimes a little weird. But those two guys are definitely, I think that they are the ones to beat for sure.
I would even go a bit further and say that Michels has the slight upper hand. He's finished ahead of Haverdings in all 3 races they did against each other this year. They have faced each other in different type of courses. Overijse, Beringen, Ruddervoorde. Always Michels came on top. Last year Michels won the European title against Verstringen. I think Verstringen punctured in the final lap. Michels took the title, he'll defend it. I think the course here is good for him. He is a good road rider, so I would expect to see him on top. Haverdings has been doing well. He can and will definitely be in the mix, but I don't think this course is hard enough for Haverdings to make a difference. For the 3rd place, I do think it applies what you say. We see surprises. I remember Michael Crispin becoming European champion. I do think the form gap at the moment is too big. Although I am curious to hear your thoughts on Aaron Dox, because he could be a surprise playmaker here. He's done 1 race, that was Overijse. He finished 12th. You and I have seen him work in Benidorm last year, and he certainly loves a fast course.
He does. He definitely does. So that's, that is definitely one of the guys that I think, could play a role. And just to come back on Haverdings and Michels in a way, of course, Michels had the upper hand somewhat on Haverdings, but again, that was an elite race, and the issue with that is when you are leading, you have to make the pace, and you don't have to follow in a way. So, you got to be a little more ballsy, you got to go and push the pace for yourself, and if you're not that good at it, you will have some riders and you will, and then the initiative lays completely on you in a way. So that is definitely also going to make it a little bit more interesting. I think that Dox is definitely a rider that could play a role, that could get in the mix. But the question is really, is that 1 race enough to already get himself in the mix? The form looks all right, but it's hard to judge in a way. I think that his result in Overijse was definitely good. But if that is good enough to play for the podium, that's going to be the big question.
I think Dogs will make a play for the podium, perhaps even for the title. As you say, playmaking here is a big difference. You're the leader, you need to set the pace. The race is a bit shorter, which could perhaps help Haverdings, because in Overijse he was definitely ahead of Michels for 45 minutes. Other riders I can see make a play for a podium are first year U23, Stefano Vietzi and Aubin Sparvel. Sparvel won the first U23 race of the Coupe de France in Nome. He crashed while leading on the 2nd day. We have also seen him at work many times last year. He can do well on a lot of different type of courses, but a fast course is certainly somewhere on top of the courses he prefers. Vietzi, honestly, I can't really wrap my head around what type of cross rider this is. He's tall, he's very skinny, he looks kind of clumsy on the bike. He is clumsy because in Zolder he was involved in a start crash and then he hid somewhere on the course, just waited for the leaders to lap him, sat in the wheel for about a lap before being pulled. He is a bit clumsy, but he's also a very talented bike rider. He does well on different type of courses. I don't know here, Issam, but he can surprise. You can never write him off. But yeah, ultimately I would take Sparvel.
You gotta explain that story. Hold on, I don't know that story. What did he wait on purpose there and just thought that they wouldn't catch him, or was it just him wanting to test the sit in the wheel of the leaders to see what the pace was?
No, he wanted to test the wheels. He was in the background. He, after one lap of chasing, realized he wasn't going to get back. So I think it was in the sanctuary area where there's no spectators. He just stood and waited for the leaders to come, sat on the wheel, raced right past the 80% tent people, sat in the wheel until he at some point got dropped and then just left the race.
Quite the story. I haven't heard this one. Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think, as you said, Vietzi is definitely a guy. He has a big engine, though. That guy has a big engine, and if he is able to utilize that, and he has a good form, I don't know what to expect from him. But as you said, it's difficult to pinpoint what type of rider he is, and he can definitely surprise me in a way with a positive result here. I think this championship comes a little bit too early for him in terms of really have a big role in this race, but he can surprise me, and so can many others, because I think we have a field which I think at the top is not that wide, but I definitely think for the places, let's say from 3-4 till the top 10, top 15, I think we got definitely some room, especially the top 10. It's going to be interesting to see how that order will be, and who is going to be able to get in that. I think that battle is going to be interesting, and at the front, I think we'll see a battle as well for the ones that's going to play it out for the jersey in the end.
Okay, and in your opinion, what podium will we see?
That's a good one. I will go with Jente Michels though. I think that he will manage it. Haverdings in second, and then I go with I might go with Stefano Vietzi in third. Just it's gonna be difficult for him. It's gonna be very difficult, but he can surprise me.
I will rate Sparvel over Vietzi, but I think that's going to be for fourth place at best. Podium is going to be Jente Michels ahead of Aaron Doks and David Haverdings. Haverdings has had some issues at championships in the past. I do think he's matured as a rider now, knows how to cope with pressure, but I think this course just isn't for him. Let's go to the junior men's race then, Issam. This is where we really come into the difficulties of not having riders race against each other. There's a lot of first years in the mix who then have a super small sample size. They've been starting at the back of most races as well, so they only really move forward as the season progresses. Still, I think Christophe Bazant from the Czech Republic is the favorite in this race. He raced 4 times this season, took 4 wins. He medaled at the World Championships last year as a first year. Yes, he was lucky that Sparvel punctured. Nevertheless, an impressive ride by him. It was not a one-time lucky shot. He was significantly better than the other first years last year, also taking a podium in Namur. He went to Belgium, started at the back of the field, cut right through, took a win in Ruddervoorde, took a win in Essen. He has a decent sprint. I struggle to see him lose, although we should always be extra cautious talking about junior races.
Well, not only cautious, I mean, it's if there is one race where we're entering quite blindly, it's probably this one. I mean, we're probably judging. Bazant had quite a good opening of his season so far, sweeping the junior races he raced at, but his opposition wasn't something spectacular to say the least, and I think that makes it a little difficult to judge if he is going to be the main favorite. I definitely think that he has the experience on how these races kind of go. That will probably help him a little bit as well. The experience will play a role here, because there are going to be quite some first years juniors that will enter this race, just blow up and maybe had the potential to do a little better than they expected, but just enter the race a little too hard, wanting too much from the race, and end up a bit more disappointed with the result that could have been a little better.
Yeah, you're completely right there with those points, but again, I do think that based on what I saw last year and what I heard / saw from the lap times in the Belgian races, that Bazant is the strongest rider. Of course, it won't be easy. The Belgians have a strong block with Arthur van der Boer, Mats van der Einde and Gilles Lejeune, but Van der Boer and Van der Einde, they have been so inconsistent last year and also this year. Especially Van der Boer is hot or cold. He can be great or he can be horrible. They can be good on any course. They can also be bad on any course. So it's just not consistent enough for me to think that they will be better than Bazant. If I had to pick from those riders, Lejeune is a first year, he's a bit unproven, he's been consistently finishing third this season. I would probably pick Van der Einde on this course, but honestly I see more competition coming from Théophile Vassal, also a second year, he's from France. I liked what I saw from him last year. He's a powerful rider, he's a decent road rider, he's on the AG Desert Decathlon Junior team. I like what I've seen from him, and I think that Vassal might be a bigger threat than the Belgians.
I can somewhat agree with you on that part. I think that Vassal definitely has the body maybe as well to to be at the front. Has had a very decent opening of his season, and that's definitely going to be someone where we have to look out for. I think the French overall, I think as well with Bruyère, he looked good as well. He won the race in Metzstetten, or whatever you call that race, somewhere in the Swiss Cyclocross Cup, somewhere in Switzerland. French also have not the worst of blocks, I would say, so it's going to be interesting to see how that will play out. Vassal definitely has the body as well to eye for a podium. And the Belgian riders are a good block as well. It's going to be a great battle, as it always somewhat is at the juniors categories. Close, fast, short racing. You're always in for a spectacle, somewhat at least, at the junior races.
I would agree. A final name I would still like to put forward is the name of Cas Timmermans, Dutch rider. If I look at him, I think he's a rider that will do even better when we hit the races like Namur or hit a super muddy race like Dendermonde. I know they're not in the Junior World Cup, but you get my point. The races are heavier. But he does fine on the fast races. I've seen him race in Mechelen, and I also saw him race in Woerden. In Woerden, I also saw, and maybe you'll again think, hey, what the hell, you didn't tell me this story yet, but in Woerden, he was drilling it in the final lap, and I was standing in a corner where there had already been a number of crashes, and the guy in second in his wheel completely eats it. He loses control. Timmermans had him like on the ropes. He was 3-4 bike lengths behind, and he knew, shit, I need to close this gap now. He accelerates too early in that slippery corner from grass to tarmac, and he does like kind of this judo roll. He goes down, does a roll, picks up his bike, and remounts, and well, by then Timmermans was already gone and took the win, but I saw him move through the field in Mechelen. I like what I've seen from him. I've had him on my radar for a longer time, even when I went to the youth races pre-COVID with my sister. I could see him racing. He's the same age as my sister. He was very strong then. He looks a bit stronger, a bit more matured now. Of course, it makes sense. We're many years later now. I do think he's a rider to factor in terms of the predictions. I will go with Bazant ahead of Vassal and Timmermans. I can't put a Belgian on the podium here.
Ooh, all right. I will go with Vassal ahead of Bazant, and then I think that Bruyère will be in third.
Yeah, good pick there. The French are always a force to be reckoned with in the junior categories, and the same goes in the junior women's category. They have 3 very strong riders lined up. Well, actually 4, but for the sake of length, Issam, let's stick with the short list. We can't put everyone out there. They've been winning a bunch of races. Again, hard to really get an idea of how these races compare to each other, but they have Lise Revol, they have Jean Duterne, and they also have Lison Desperez. Desperez is a second year, the other 2 are first year juniors. They both ride for the AS bike team, and they've been doing quite well. I think we're going to get a battle here between the French block and the Czech block. We'll talk about the Czech block in a bit, but the French, it's not the first time, and they've historically always been good in the junior categories, but it looks like really the last couple of years they are hitting it again with big talents in that category. Has shown that they now have 3 favorites for the European title here again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it shows they give it a lot of care, the junior categories, and when you do so, you might end up with a good generation, and if you give it time and you give it care, you can really get the benefits from it, and I think that is completely the case. I would say that I fancy the Dutch ladies as well. I think with Kabaka and Moes, I think that those ladies also, I don't see them as favorites for the win per se, but I think as underdogs they are definitely ones to watch. I think that for a top 5, maybe even sneaking up on the podium, could be within the possibilities. It's gonna be tough, but I think that they are also ones to watch and a force to be reckoned with.
I would say Kabasa more than Moes. Moose has been decent. She's on my list of outsiders, long list. She's there together with Sanne Laurijsen. I do rate Cabasa higher. She finished in the top 10 at last year's World Championship. She was 7th. She's been doing quite well in those elite races, but the course is not really that good for her. It's too fast. She's a lightweight. I just don't really... I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about it. She's very talented, but I just don't see this course played to her skill set, and I do see that, especially on the French side for Revol. She won twice in Nomain. Maybe I'm biased because I watched the race on the Sunday there. I liked what I saw there. She was very smart, sat in the wheels for the first half, dropped an attack in the second half on an uphill, and was immediately gone, tired out the rest. Revolve, yeah, it just looked good what I saw there. Then her teammate Dutern, she won in Brumat. I also watched the final lap of that race on the YouTube stream. That also looked decent, but then I would probably take Revol slightly over Dutern. And then, well, we have Desperes there. She's a second year. She has the experience. It's a good course for her. But ultimately, for me, the big favorites come from the Czech Republic, Issam. We've talked about it a couple of times already this season. Bukovska has been winning an elite race there, has been fighting with Zemanova for wins, 2 second places. For me, Bukovska is the top favorite. We spoke highly about the French program. We should also speak highly about the Czech program, because they all have been delivering some talents in the past couple of years as well. Václav Jezek, for instance, before. We have Zemanova coming through there. We have Bazant on the men's side. We have Bukovska, but they also have Amalie Gottwaldova, 9th place at last year's World Championships in Tabor. She's a second year now. And the fact that she's not my top favorite is simply because she's been outclassed by Bukovska and by Lucy Grohova, another Czech rider. I mean, they only have budget to support 4 riders, but they could have selected 7, well, technically they have 6 selection quota places, but they have 7 riders that can all finish in the top 10 here. It's crazy, and to me, Bukovska and Grohova are the favorites on this course. Gottwaldova will do better when it gets muddy, but on this fast course, Bukovska and Grohova, they are my favorites.
Yeah, they have showed great promise. The question is how can we compare it in terms of overall? But I feel that they have the papers to definitely get on the podium. It looked quite convincing. Also, the fact that Zemanova was there and they gave her a run for her money in a way. So it looks quite promising for the Czech riders as well, and how they will deal with the course. It is a championship in the end, so that will make it a little different. Than just a race where where there is basically not that much pressure, and now the pressure will definitely rise. Just going on the Czech program, I think we have said it already 1 or 2 episodes ago, but they have a great setup at the moment. It looks very good. The riders that they have right now under them is insane, especially in the junior categories. But as you said as well, Bazant and Zemanova. Not to repeat you, but I think that is that looks very promising, and I think the only scary part of this is that I hope at least that we will maintain some within the sport of cyclocross, because there is a second love, and sometimes that is mountain bike, and that could play a role maybe in the future, but hopefully that doesn't play a role, and they somewhat keep the love for cyclocross as well and keep doing that as well.
Well, many of these riders are active on the mountain bike, and we can talk about the role the Olympics can have in here, but let's not do that. We've done that plenty. Let's stick to the preview. Final name I would like to mention here is another mountain biker, Swiss rider Anja Grossman. She has been very good. She raced one day in the Coupe de France, finished 2nd there, has been winning the races in Switzerland. She finished 2nd in Steinmauer to Dutern. It's really hard because these results go back and forth. This is, in my opinion, the most open race, more open than the junior men's race. And it will be interesting to see what return we get here. It should be a good weekend, and I will let you to do the final prediction here, since we have no start list of the mixed relay. I don't expect many countries at the start there either, but yeah, up to you. What do you think will be the podium here?
I feel like a blind person having to tell you what color is in front of him. Difficult one. I go with. It was impressive, the results that we have seen from Bukowska. So I go with Bukowska winning it ahead of Dutern and Kabasa in third.
I will go as well with Bukowska. I already told you I was going to pick her. I think we will see Revol in second place. And then I think we will see Grohova as a second Czech rider on the podium after close race. I think we'll see a couple of sprints for the win, which is nice. I like it when a cross race comes down to a sprint. We don't see it that often anymore. So yeah, let's hope for that. Issam, long episode, but we covered all the races. Thank you for your time.
We got through it. Oh God. Well, it's. I hope that we can look back to the things that we have said and not be embarrassed of it. I think that I have some things that I said that maybe I'll look back on them after the weekend and think that it wasn't really the right prediction or shout, but it was fun. So looking forward to the Europeans.
Well, that's of course also the nature of doing predictions. We've done previews that could be devoted to the bin, because we talk about a dry race and then weather forecast change, mud, and everything we said is useless. We'll see what comes from it. The reason that I was so well prepared with this list was today. I had a day at university. I arrived at 10 and I left at 6:30. So I had plenty of time between my classes to do nothing. Think about these riders to put on my list. Maybe this order. No, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, okay. What if Issam does this prediction and this becomes my backup prediction? So I had a lot of time and we'll see if it pays off, huh?
Well, I hope it does, because I came in freestyling. I prepared a little bit for it, but I didn't go into depth like you do. I just had my prediction and that's kind of it.
Yeah, and of course we've been covering and discussing a lot over the past couple of weeks, so we'll just see after this weekend. Thanks everyone for listening. We will be back with the podcast of the Koppenberg Cross on Friday, and then we will record about the European Championships on Sunday. Thanks for listening. See you guys soon. Goodbye.